Today we're going to be talking about selling mainly Marvel Legends, but this will apply to most action figures and collectible items. We like to focus in on Hasbro stuff normally, but we'll kind of branch out from there. But how do you go about selling your action figures? Whether it's one that you just don't want anymore, you need to make space for new things in the collection, or maybe you've stumbled upon an old box in the closet that you just don't need anymore, but you want to get full price for it. We're going to be talking about that today, so stick around, roll the intro. Hello and welcome back to the Strong Collectors Podcast. I'm your host, Dakota, here with my co-host, Jordan. And like I said, today we're going to be talking about selling our action figures. But before we do, remember, like, share, subscribe. I'm actually going to be sending out the shirt to our winner. Actually, the runner-up, because the winner never got to me. But the runner-up is going to be getting the shirt this week. Well, it's going to be sent to them this week. They'll probably get it maybe early next week. So if you also would like a Strong Collectors shirt, the link for that is going to be down in the description below. Click on that. It'll take you there. I'm wearing a size large. Fits pretty good. I'm like 165 pounds, about 6 feet tall. Give you a reference. Jordan is still...
What's your wingspan?
My wingspan is, I don't know, this big. This is how big my wingspan is.
How many Galactuses?
Probably 2 galacti.
2 galacti.
About 2 galacti wingspan.
Just start using that as a measurement tool.
What else? Yeah, I don't know if we have a giveaway planned. Stay tuned for that. Maybe we'll have another giveaway at 600 subscribers. But we're at like 531, 533, something like that right now. So we got a little bit of time to figure that out if we are or not. But we'll definitely do something big at 1,000.
Oh yeah.
Anyway. Let's talk selling action figures. So I think for Jordan and I both kind of have a similar mentality with our action figures of we want to try the best we can to fund our collecting habits with our collecting habits. So when we first got back into Marvel Legends, I had kept a bunch of my old Toy Biz ones, early Hasbro from when we were collecting as kids, pulled those out, and then kind of went through and saw which ones I didn't really want so much. Ones that I wanted to keep. I actually don't have too many from that original collection because I've kind of upgraded most of them. I've got a few sentimental ones, but...
Sorry, guys.
The first one I found, I was like, oh...
This ain't Toy Story.
Yeah, exactly. But I found Blob, and I was like, I never really liked him as a kid, and I just thought he always looked kind of gross, but I looked him up.
And he was real hot right then.
And I ended up being able to sell him for like $250. And then I had some money to start collecting some of the newer figures that I actually wanted. So I think we should probably start with, how do you find the value of your toys, Jordan?
Yeah, so I think we have a pretty similar method, which we just go by the eBay sold listings. Because the mistake people always make is looking at like, well, it's going for this on eBay. Or people have the, I hate eBay, so I don't do anything with it mentality. Where I think eBay... I think you can find deals on there. Yeah. But for the most part, it just seems pretty close to market value.
Right.
And for me, it seems like I know there's the action figure 411 thing. I never really got into that tool. I know people like it, but to me, eBay always seemed, because it just tells you what's most recent. Because it's like, maybe overall, it would sell for that, but right now, what's it selling for?
Right.
So I think the eBay sold listing... And then just going probably a little bit below that, because you got to consider the fact that there's fees and usually shipping.
But I guess, and we'll get into that of like how you're going to be selling, because there will be different fees involved.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. I think Action Figure 411 and websites like that are kind of helpful for giving yourself like a general idea, or if you're, if maybe you just like, you stumbled upon a collection that you have and you're just like, I don't really want any of these figures. They need to all be in the box. They need to all be like in good condition, sealed, never opened. And that's where Action Figure 411 can help you. Sometimes, though, it can be a little bit off, because like when I was looking at my Blob value, I think they had included figures from the wave in there. So it was like, oh, Yellow Jacket costs this much and Juggernaut costs this much. And it's like that like brought the value down, even though the
Right.
actual figure that I was trying to sell was a higher value. So it's not
Mm-hmm.
always 100% accurate. I'm not sure what their algorithm is to like get those numbers. So I would always double check just to make sure. But like if you don't have any interest in the action figures, you don't really know that much, it's pretty easy because it's going to have all the pictures and like graphs and charts for you to see the
Yeah.
values. But eBay sold is better, but you have to make sure that you check that box to see what the sold listings are, because anybody can put anything on eBay for whatever the price they want. So just because you see like whatever action figure like Spider-Man, somebody selling it for $500, chances are that's never going to sell. Like Jordan and I always like send this one post back and forth. I don't know if it's still up, but there's somebody did a, sorry if you're listening.
I was just going to reference this.
Somebody made a custom blob that uses like the head of the Build-A-Figure and then the body of, I don't know what.
Doesn't it have the hands too?
It
And
might
it's
have
like,
the hand, which is,
weren't the hands worth like $80?
it's like the most valuable part, but they just like glued it on this other not good looking figure, and they're trying to sell it for way more than anyone's
Like,
ever going to buy it for.
$350.
Yeah. So you can always list something for whatever you want to, but when you filter it to be sold, that's what's going to actually give you what people are going to be willing to pay for what you're selling. So always make sure you're checking the sold listings, not necessarily what it's for sale for. But now, where do you want to sell it? I think it's going to kind of depend on what you have. So I think a rule of thumb that Jordan and I follow, and to not be I guess like you should always, if you can, try to join some Facebook groups of whatever it is if you're trying to sell Marvel Legends, like we usually do. There's, I don't know, I'm in like 15 or so Marvel Legend type groups on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
You can always sell there. However, like I know when like a new figure first comes out, you'll see sometimes people will be like, oh, got this new figure, and it's like an exclusive, really hard to find, and they try to sell a $25 action figure for like $75. Usually those groups are not the place for that. At least that's what I tend to think. Because collectors kind of know that that's a new figure. They know that you're being a scalper. So if you're trying to sell something like that, I would recommend you take that to eBay and sell it there, because that's where you're probably more likely, you're not going to get like a hassle of like people are like laughing at you in the comments, calling you a scalper, it's just more hassle than you need. Just put it on eBay. You're going to have to pay a little bit more fees, but you'll be able to sell your thing for the market value, which is probably higher if it's a brand new exclusive figure that nobody can find.
Well, and that would save you time, because when you have a hot item, time is very valuable to, if you're wanting to even trade for it, but especially selling.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than dealing with, like you said, the hassle of having people be like, what are you trying to do here?
Right.
Man? Just kind of saves you time.
Yeah. And I think also, like, kind of like Jordan just said, is like time is of the essence when you're trying to sell a hot item like that. If it's like, we've both found like Build-A-Figure waves back when those were actually valuable and people wanted them. Like if you found a whole wave, you could like just take the Build-A-Figure, sell it, and it would pay for the wave, and then you could keep the figures. Not so much the case now, but for things like that, you would want to probably...
I would never do that now.
No, yeah, I wouldn't either anymore. But if it was something like that, where it was that hot, where it's like, this is gonna come out, but sometimes like Targets, Walmart's, like it's just employees getting paid not that much money. So like, just because there's a street date for something doesn't mean they are necessarily going to follow it. Maybe they'll put something out a month early. There's always going to be collectors that want to be the first to have a thing, so they're willing to pay a little bit more for it. And for those, like eBay, you can choose whether it's like a 1-day auction or up to a 10-day auction, I think, maybe even farther. But I would always like lean towards like smaller windows for those hot items. So I usually choose a 3-day window. I think it costs you an extra $1 to do that. But to me, it's worth it because I want to be like one of those first sales, because I want the folks that want it first. But then, so now let's talk, like if you're going to be selling in the groups, Jordan, and let's switch to loose figures, because we usually deal in loose figures most often. We do sell some sealed stuff, but loose figures.
Well, yeah, I think prefacing the whole thing would be most of our interactions are done through connections on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
in like the Facebook groups. So like that is kind of the central hub, but within that there's subgroups, of course, you know.
Right.
So I mean, there's some like things I've sold through Marketplace itself,
Yeah.
like just posting in like my local area.
Mm-hmm.
I've sold some figures that way, but for the most part, yeah, it's going to be people through those groups. And
Because you're going to be able to cast a much wider net that
right,
way to the whole
yeah,
country, even the world.
yeah, yeah. And those groups have, I mean, I don't know. I'm curious to see what the highest number is to scroll through, but they're pretty big
Yeah,
communities of
I know some are in the
collectors.
20,000s.
Yeah,
So
so that's pretty cool.
yeah.
But yeah, doing that, and then do we get into the like PayPal idea?
Yeah, so I guess usually when you're selling in the Facebook groups, I mean, we always recommend, and the groups even sometimes it's in their rules specify like you have to use PayPal as your selling method, just because it's going to have more purchase protection for the buyers, and that's kind of where those fees come into play. Of if you sell on eBay, I can't remember, I think it's either a 13 or 16% fee that they take, and then PayPal takes out, I believe it's a 3 or 4% fee.
Yeah.
And it might be different if you're like a actual like PayPal business seller type person. I can't remember if it gets a little lower if you sell
like a
more.
business account.
Yeah, but typically
Yeah.
you're going to be around like that 3 or 4%. So that's something you have to kind of factor in as you're selling. Like if I'm going to sell something for $100, somebody's going to send me that $100, but I'm only going to see whatever it is, $97, $96 from it. So PayPal will take that out automatically, but then that just in case you are a scammer, which I don't know why you're listening to this. If you're a scammer, we're not telling you how to scam, but if you didn't send it, then the buyer could say, hey, this person sent me the wrong thing or never sent it at all, which has happened to both of us. And then we just go through PayPal and then PayPal gives us our money back.
We could do one of those documentary FBI things and get a scammer on here.
Yeah.
Blur out his face.
Yeah.
Or like, I'm a reformed scammer and this is how I used to do it.
We got our old buddy. We could see if he wants to come on the podcast.
Yeah, there's several people I could invite to that podcast, I think. But yeah, I think PayPal is just best the goods and services, because even when I first started, I didn't realize the difference. I think my first few transactions were just friends and family because I didn't know.
True. I guess maybe explain the difference between the two, Jordan.
Yeah. So the goods and services will charge the seller a percentage fee, but it guarantees that if something goes wrong, you can file a claim and get things taken care of. Whereas the friends and family, there's no fee, but there's also no protection. Well, I don't know. Don't they say you can file a claim, but it's like you're probably never going to.
Right. I think for that it's probably a little bit more immediate, where it's if I was going to send money to, I send $100 to Jordan and I send it friends and family, I could probably contact PayPal like right afterwards and be like, oh, whoops, I meant to send this to somebody else, or instead of $100, I meant to send 10. I think they could maybe switch things up like that. But typically then if you send it friends and family, it's a much lower chance that you're going to have any purchase protection, if any.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I've used, I mean, I had a $600+ purchase on PayPal that they just gave me all my money back, and it didn't really take very long. So
yeah,
I don't know. I know there's some hesitation with those, but I mean, just even sometimes doing the apps, I mean, I would be hesitant. Are we going to say things that are kind of suspect?
Yeah,
I mean, if you're doing
there's
Cash App.
Right, yeah, Cash App is usually a big red flag, but I think, don't I have one guy that like anytime he buys me something, he pays you and then you send me? Isn't that through Cash App?
So I think so. So I guess it's like certain circumstances. A lot of it too is like what you're comfortable with.
Right.
You know, like if you see a great deal and the guy wants it through some method, you know, like you can take that gamble, I guess. But there's some people that I've done like smaller amounts with, and then it's like, oh, that worked out. But
and that's,
I don't know.
It does kind of depend too on the group, and like it seems to me like the higher end, I don't like Mythic Legions are typically friends and family, and mezcos are typically friends and family. But usually if somebody's asking you for those things, I would go onto their profile or like see what their activity was in the group, see if they've been around
Mm-hmm.
for a while. If I've seen somebody's been in the group for like 2 years or something, I'm like, all right, they're probably good. Otherwise, they would have been kicked out. But you can
Yeah.
always also ask for references too. So, like if I'm gonna say like, oh, I want to do friends and family. Like for me, whenever I'm selling something on Facebook, I'll usually say like it's either $100 with shipping, goods and services, or it's $97 friends and family. Like if you want to save a
Mm-hmm.
few bucks, I'm not going to get charged the fees, so like you can save that money if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
And then usually I'll send them like a link to the podcast or something, being like, hey, look, I've talked to Todd McFarlane and Jeremy Gerard, so like I'm pretty good. Also, I've done over 100 buy sell trade things. You look me up. Here's some references if you want them. Here's Jordan's name. Usually use Clay. Usually use
You may
Wes.
have heard of my friends Jeremy and Todd.
Exactly. So I usually give that option. But if I'm
Yeah.
purchasing from somebody, I usually lean towards goods and services unless I've done
Mm-hmm.
deals with them. Like whenever I'm paying Jordan back, it's always friends and family or whatever. But
Now sometimes
that's I mean not with
I'm
Jordan.
just
Jordan, I
kidding.
trust Jordan. I know where he lives. We're good there. But like that old buddy that I just mentioned, like we had several good transactions. I sent him extra stuff. I'm waiting 6 months now for my payment. So it's not always always be cautious when you're selling your stuff, because I'm waiting 6 months to get paid for stuff I've sold. So
Yeah.
I think going back to the loose stuff, that's going to affect your value. I don't think we mentioned that.
Yeah.
Something sealed in box is going to usually go for more. Like we could use, I don't even know if that Hawkeye's a good example. Maybe like Retrovision. Like Retrovision is probably over $100 sealed still.
Yeah. I
But if
think
he's
so.
loose, you could maybe find him for like 75, maybe if you're
Yeah,
lucky.
probably.
So that's kind of where that
70 range.
that's like a kind of one of those higher end examples. But usually if you're going to like sell something in box, the price is going to be like, that's where you could maybe use more of the action figure 411.
Right.
But something loose is going to be usually at least $10 less, depending on how cheap it is in box. Like if it's like $10 in box, then you're not going to get much lower than that. But then also making sure that you have all the parts and pieces for it. So something like the deluxe war machine that comes with like smoke effects, rocket boots,
Mm-hmm.
all those like effects. If you're missing those effects, that's also going to bring the value down a little bit. And you can sometimes see the values for those on eBay. Like if it's like a Spider-Man sold like as is without any extra hands, sometimes you'll be able to see those, but sometimes you just kind of have to make that adjustment yourself. Be like, okay, I've got him. He's worth about $40. If I had everything, I don't have everything, so I'm going to sell him for 30.
Yeah.
There is a little bit of a guessing game, and I don't know.
Well, and it also depends on how quickly you want to move your product,
That's
like
true.
if you're like, man, I need some cash, then yeah, obviously you could go a little lower.
Mm-hmm.
There have been many times, I think, where both of us are like, yeah, we'll just lean on the higher end and see if somebody takes it.
Right.
And there have been many times for me where that's like,
Yeah.
I've posted something like 2 or 3 times, and on the 4th time, someone's like, I'll take it for 75. It's like, oh,
Right.
all right, cool. Like, so it is kind of a waiting game a lot of the time.
Yeah. And I've had that too, where it's like I have something that I kind of want to sell, but also I wouldn't mind if I kept it. So then I'll sometimes like overvalue it like by $5, and then it's like if it sells, oh, at least I made an extra $5, then it was worth. But if I also don't sell it, I'm also still happy to keep it. How about posting your stuff in the group store? And I think we've both kind of come up with this like our own little algorithm of maximizing our sales, which I'm a little worried to share this with everybody, because maybe we're going to be flooding our algorithm and it's not going to work as well. But we always have good stuff to sell, so I don't mind sharing it with the people.
So you mean like when to post and
Like
stuff?
when to post and how to take your pictures.
I mean, I definitely lean towards, as far as pictures themselves, just lined up on the kitchen table.
Mm-hmm.
Nice, clean, no feet in there, or like weird shots of them on your couch cushion. Like,
Right.
I don't know. Or at least if you gotta make it a clean couch, don't make there be gross stuff. So I don't know. But you also want. I think it seems like I still do this. The photo with the timestamp thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if most groups even require that anymore.
I almost
Probably
never do
not.
that. Yeah. I mean, some do, but I never have done it really.
But we've started kind of doing more. I don't remember. I think Sam told me to do this, and then maybe we both started doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But lining up by like price.
Yep.
So like this row is 10, this row is 20, this row is 30. That kind of thing. Just because I do think people don't really like to scroll through.
I've always hated that.
All your prices. And especially if it's like, here's the link to the Word document. It's like, I don't really want to dig through that.
Exactly. And so it's like, it's so much quicker to just be like, is that a price I'm willing to pay? Yes, no.
Mm-hmm.
And then you move on or you message the person. So, and even for me too, as a seller, like it helps me sell more, but also when somebody says like, oh, I want Spider-Man, Batman, and Wolverine, I can go back to my pictures. I say he was 10, he was 30, and he was 15. Much easier for me to add up rather than having to either remember how much they cost or scroll through my own like list of like every single one itemized out. It's much quicker for me to like go back and remember the prices that I'd set. And it's just so much more organized too, I think, because like some people are like, if they're gonna be buying like one of those bigger ticket items, like they're gonna buy that $75 loose Vision, maybe they would throw in an extra $10 figure because they see, oh, this is the cheap row.
Right.
I'll just throw that in too.
So it's like the Dwight Schrute method of selling.
Yep.
Put the attractive beats in with the average beats, but you want to put out the money beats that make people pull over and say, I need this beat right now.
Yep. So that's
so I usually like to. You don't usually want a lot of all like lower tier stuff. You want to have some goodies mixed in there.
That's true.
Kind of spice it up a bit.
I guess
because people will just scroll right past if it's all like, check out my Eternals wave for sale. It's like,
exactly. So I think, and that's kind of what I did in my last, and I just got a new lot in that I'm going to mix in with some of the older stuff that I'm trying to sell. But I should have pictures of the old stuff. But I've got the cheaper figures that, are kind of a little bit harder sales. I mean, I've got some for, I think it's like 2 for 10. But then I put in like a retro Kingpin. People are looking for him. I put in like the Scarlet Spider Kane. Those are a little bit more popular. People are looking for them. They're going to kind of draw people in, and then they're going to buy the other stuff from it. Also, the days that we post, I think Jordan and I usually try to be pretty strategic of payday, because there are several times where I'll post something for sale and then somebody will say, oh, hey, this is available and I can pay for it on Friday when I get paid. So I've just gone to posting like almost every time I'm selling something, I'm posting it on Friday, because Friday is typically a payday. And when you can line up a Friday with a 1st or 31st kind of, or 15th, kind of those like
15th,
those are
double Yahtzee, baby.
Yep. Then you get a payday for the first of the month, and you get a Friday payday, and everybody's got money to burn, and I hope they buy my toys with that money. So,
and then Dakota can buy more toys.
And then I can buy more toys myself. So yeah, that is.
And you can feed into someone else's cycle.
Yep. It's a never-ending cycle of plastic.
Until it comes back around and comes to you.
Yep. So yeah, that's kind of my recipe, or both of our recipes for getting the best sale days, to post the pictures, and I'll put pictures on YouTube too if you're watching. Lay them all out on the table, post-it notes to show the row is $15, $20 row, and then choosing the day. And I usually go morning. I don't know if there's any. I usually try to do it like as people are awake, because every time I wake up in the morning, I open Facebook and I see who's selling toys. I can't be the only one, so that's usually why I try to post in the Friday morning. So yeah, Friday morning or payday, laid out, post-it notes, make it as simple as possible. And how about, you don't really sell many lots, do you, Jordan? Like if somebody just like says, here's a whole box of toys, I don't want them anymore, what are they going to be expecting?
I mean, definitely with lots, you're if you want to sell it, you're gonna get probably less value than what if
Yeah.
you did it individually. Um, but you kind of got to know, do you want to just get rid of it, or
Mm-hmm.
are you trying to get full value? Because when you try to do full value for a lot, usually people just scroll past because
Mm-hmm.
it's just kind of astronomically
Yeah.
priced, I guess. So I think that kind of plays into it.
Yeah. And I think that's like there are some people that just like, I mean, that's how Jordan and I usually purchase
Mm-hmm.
action figures now, is through lots. So it's
Mm-hmm.
definitely like it's a much faster way, because I'm selling stuff right now that I've probably been trying to sell for 6 months. It just like I keep putting it out, nobody wants to buy it, and I just hold on to it forever. So if that's not something you want to do, if you don't want to be making sales posts as often as we are, like I'm posting not quite every Friday, but I would say at least
Maybe
every
two,
other every other
three
Friday.
times a month.
Yeah. So if you just wanted to make one sales post, I would say you're going to be looking at about maybe a little over half the value of full price if you were to
Mm-hmm.
like individually price each one out. That's probably how I would do it, is I would price each one out and then cut that price in half, and you're going to sell it. You could maybe get a
Mm-hmm.
little bit more, maybe like you could try for 75%, and depending on what you're selling, it could work. But kind of
Yeah.
like Jordan was saying, is if you're trying to sell like a lot of Eternals, or like I'm still debating on whether I should sell my lot of Age of Apocalypse stuff, I'm not going to be getting full price for it, unfortunately. So, but then it's like, do
Yeah.
I guess that's kind of like where I'm at, where if I sell them for full price, is that going to be more valuable or less valuable than having like a full set of all of the Age of Apocalypse
That's
figures?
true.
So I don't know. What do you actually think of that, Jordan?
Like that specific
That,
instance or
yeah,
just
or
the
like if somebody
concept?
had like the entire like Eternal set, or like an entire X-Men team, like is that still going to be like a 50%? Because if it's
I
just like a
think
random
usually,
hodgepodge.
I think it's usually like at that point you're banking on hitting the exact right customer at the
Mm,
exact right time,
sure.
right? Because most collectors, if you're even slightly interested, you will probably have like part of them. You might,
Sure.
if you get the brand new collector who's like, whoa,
Mm-hmm.
the whole wave of this thing, like that would be very valuable to them. So I don't know. I guess you could always like list them and say like these prices or is a lot,
Mm,
this.
true.
But then if somebody buys one, you got to go back and I don't like the
Right.
hassle with
Yeah,
all
I don't
that
like that either.
personally. You know,
I,
that's just
I feel you.
yeah, it's just it's nicer to not have to like edit out the photo, and I just like the simplicity.
Yeah.
So I think, and it also probably depends on what the lot is,
Mm-hmm.
I guess, which
Like that's
sounds
kind of what I was
vague,
thinking. If it
but
was like a Jim Lee style, like X-Men, like the animated type of look, not
mm-hmm,
necessarily the cell shaded ones, but like, but then I guess that's kind of where you're talking like somebody probably already has Wolverine. Maybe they just need Cyclops and
mm-hmm.
Storm. So they probably usually don't need the entire lot.
And then you have to deal with everyone saying willing to separate, and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like then that's kind of a hassle for you to have to be like, no, no,
Right.
no, because even if you say not splitting, usually people will
They'll still
say,
say, or like, let me know if you are. Which I've actually done that with like a
yeah,
couple of my McFarlane lots when I sold the year two
yeah,
Batman. I just put everything as a lot because I would have preferred to just sell it all at once, but people wanted to like pick and choose, and I ended up selling over half the lot just by individual things.
yeah.
So it is a little bit more of a hassle. And then like if somebody would have been like, oh, I'll take the whole lot, that'd be like, oh, sorry, all these ones that you probably already wanted sold. So I think the last piece to cover with selling is shipping. So
Mm-hmm.
I think this is where Jordan and I messed up for like a full year or more. Is we just like packed our stuff up, took it to the post office. The post office said this is how much it cost to ship, and then we paid them, and then it was shipped. Now we know better. We have our own scales. We've got Pirate Ship. There's other services you can use. We both use Pirate Ship, but it is like
Yeah,
at least $1, if not like $3 or $4 or $5 cheaper sometimes, depending on what you're shipping.
yeah. It's pretty amazing. Like,
Yeah.
and I love it. Just keeps track of
Mm-hmm.
all your stuff. It gives you like when like your average numbers, kind of where you've been selling.
Yeah.
It gives you all your shipping prices there. You don't have to hassle with a billion receipts.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking about it today. Like, I went into the self-serve and just scanned them, but it's like I used to spend so much time
Yeah.
doing that.
Yeah,
like weighing it and then putting in the measurements and then getting,
Right. So what are you saying you do now?
What?
You scan them there?
What do you mean?
What do you mean? What do you mean?
I'm
You
saying
still
like the
you still put your you still take your action figure, put it in your box, put it on your scale, type it into Pirate Ship, right?
right,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. I thought you had already found a
Some
way
new
to
wave,
you've found a way to
circumvent the
surpass
machine.
that. Yeah.
I just manifest a label and it just goes where it needs to go.
Yeah, I guess that is
No.
one point is you need to have a printer to be able to do
that
that.
is what I would say is, yeah.
But I mean, even then, you can usually use your local library. Like my library charges 10 cents per page that you print off, which is kind of annoying, but it's still cheaper than paying at USPS. So it's worth it. But if you have a printer yourself, then you don't have to worry about I mean, I don't know what ink and paper costs, but if you have a job, you probably just print it off at work. Technically, maybe that's stealing. I don't know, but you're printing off a label. You're fine. Just
That is unethical, Dakota.
it is unethical. I'm sorry for giving you advice on how to
encouraging unethical. No, yeah. I mean, we save a lot.
Yeah, and I think Pirate Ship even tells you you've saved this much per year, and yeah, it's significant for sure. So I would recommend you get on that. You don't have to, because I did feel bad because I kind of knew my postal service workers. I'd be like, oh, hey, how's it going? He's like, oh, back with more stuff, and I haven't seen him in months now, so I wonder if he still thinks about me. But I'm saving too much money.
He just watches this podcast and he's thinking about you.
So I would recommend Pirate Ship, and then depending on what you're shipping, I think we've said before is take more care, especially for something that's odd shaped. That's gonna have some a piece that breaks off, kind of like the Year 2 Batman, or I don't know. I'm trying to think of if I have anything around that's odd shaped. Not necessarily, but if it has wings, like an Archangel, that, you probably don't want to be sending in a bubble mailer. But if it's something simple like a Spider-Man or an Iron Man that doesn't have any things that are going to break off it necessarily, usually I think those are fine to be shipping in a bubble mailer. That's how I send a lot of my stuff, is because if it's just a normal figure, no odd things that are going to snap, nothing fragile. Especially Marvel Legends, Star Wars Black Series, even McFarlane, those all will travel fine in a bubble mailer. If I'm selling a Mythic Legion, I'm probably going to put it in a box. If I'm selling a Mezco, it's definitely going in a box. It's kind of as you kind of reach higher and higher with the prices, you're going to want to go boxes and more bubble wrap. So
the more intricate the figure,
yes,
the more expensive the box.
Right. And usually I've never actually had to buy a box to ship anything. I just, whatever I receive, because I get enough action figures myself that I can just then take the figures I want out, put in the figures that I've sold, and then just send that box right back out. And I think that's how most people do it. You can do the USPS flat rate boxes, but I got some of the, those are so expensive. When I see some of the prices people are paying to ship stuff to me, I just want to shake them and tell them to get Pirate Ship.
Those boxes are $100 out the door.
No.
Bargain bin.
Bargain bin? If they had patterns on them, maybe.
There you go. I was trying to do Dan Flashes.
Yeah.
In honor of that coming up. Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. That'd be a good infographic we could make, a scale of value as it goes up.
Right. Frogman is okay to be bubble mailered. Mezco.
On a
Batman.
Scale of Frogman to Mezcos. What is your figure?
I also usually, if it's in a box, I put it in a box. I'm not
I've
sending
gotten
a
boxes
seal.
shipped to me in mailers.
Yep.
That is very upsetting.
I had my one of the retro Venoms that I'd gotten shipped in a bubble mailer. It was in the card back in in a bubble mailer. So I was like, that was a terrible idea because that was like I don't think it was quite $100 at the time, but still, like, a retro card should be in a box.
Yeah.
And any boxed figure, the person you're selling to probably wants their box in decent condition, even if they're going to open it. Like, I don't want some janky setup sent to me. It's like, I don't even think it really costs that much more to put in a box usually.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if you're just selling like a single like loose Iron Man, putting it in a box probably would cost more than a bubble mailer, but bubble mailers are fine. So I just put all my bubble mailers. I was going to show an example, but you get the idea. Those are a little bit cheaper.
Sidebar, let people know if they're a little smoky.
Good point, Jordan. If you are a smoker and you like your toys smell, or if you smoke in your house, chances are the things in your house smell like smoke. So
even if you can't tell,
even if you can't tell, let that be known to the buyers, because that's a pain in the butt to try to get the smoke smell out of.
That could be a spin-off episode, is
de-smoking
toys.
Yeah, you're
because
pretty
I see a lot of people post about that.
Yeah, we should definitely do something like that. Maybe this weekend when we're here, we can do like an actual video tutorial. Because you're much better at it than I am. I've given you figures to de-smoke for me. But yeah, that is a good point. Let people know if they're going to get smoky figures. I mean, sometimes like
just if there's anything, that's like notable.
Yeah.
Like if it's just like, this is just the way the figure is. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But like if it's something glaringly obvious,
right? Or like even scuffs, or like, oh, this has like a loose leg. Because some of those older Toy Biz figures can get loose. Even some Hasbro stuff gets loose. So letting that be known is super helpful too, because otherwise you're going to have that hassle of after you've sold the figure, they get it and they're like, hey, this is like, this stuff reeks, because we've both had that before. Or you get it and it's like, if you don't pack it very well and an arm snaps off, which I've also had happen, where somebody shipped something that shouldn't have been sent in a bubble mailer, or even sometimes if it could have been sent in a bubble mailer, you just run that risk of it's not as protected. So then you're going to have to deal with like a refund or whatever. So, yeah.
Just remember that time I got you like a Yellow Lantern Scarecrow, and I opened it and it was like a Lego package. Just all the pieces just showered out.
I didn't know about that.
He just got like thrown in a giant bubble mailer. That's the other thing. Use appropriate sized mailers for the figures.
Yeah.
Like if you put one figure in an 8.5 by 11, it's going to be rattling around all the time.
And also vice versa. I've had people try to like fold their figures up in half and be like, oh no, this fits in this bubble mailer. It's like, well, it broke on its way here.
Did.
Right, yeah. Good job. And like I said, you're not going to save yourself. Like, I think it's more based off the weight, not even the size. So like the fact that you got it to fit in a smaller package didn't save you any money. But instead, you sent a broken figure, and now you have to refund me because. Well,
remember that guy on eBay when the retro was hot? I got a lot of the movie Venom and the retro Spidey for super cheap, but they came in this one box, and Venom was like contorted, and Spider-Man's legs were like flipped behind his head. I'm like, what? And he's just warped beyond belief.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, what happened here, man? And he's like, that's the only box I had. I was like.
Go find another box. Yeah. It's not hard. I mean, and that's just the risk you're going to run. If you're going to try to pull stuff like that as a seller, you're just probably going to have to do some refunds later on. So something to keep in mind. I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm just saying be prepared to send the money that you just received back. So, and sometimes that's not even up to you. Like when that happened to Jordan, I think worked it out with the seller, but he could have just gone straight through eBay, and eBay would have been like, no, yeah, you sent him janky stuff, refunded.
Yeah. So,
I don't know. I think that pretty much covers selling action figures, doesn't it, Jordan? Anything we missed?
Yeah. I mean,
you can always sell on other places like Macari and whatnot, but we're not super well versed in those. So I usually I sell as much as I can on Facebook, and if I can't sell it there, or like I said, if it's kind of like one of those hot ticket items I want to sell fast and high, then that's where I'll use eBay. But yeah, I think that hopefully,
I'd say also maybe save or screenshot some references or transactions if you have any,
yeah,
because sometimes people just feel better, even if it's through PayPal, if you have references.
yeah,
So sometimes I like to have those handy just to shoot off real quick,
mm-hmm.
or if something goes wrong, and I like there are times where I've had those excuses like, hey, I'm really sorry, something happened, I couldn't make, and it's like it's so much better to have those references in those times
For
so that
sure.
you don't sound like, oh, hey, my basement's flooded and my car's on fire. It's like, really,
Yeah.
like, so I think having those handy is good because people like to have them sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think if you're doing PayPal goods and services, you should be fine no
Yeah.
matter what.
Right. All right. I hope this was informative. I hope it was. We've kind of done this before where we did a buy sell trade episode, but looking back on it, it was pretty dry. I hope this was a little bit more interesting and fun to listen to. Still, it's a lot of information, so it's I mean, we could maybe even do like another rundown of this, but like boom, 2 minutes or less.
Could
This
put in
was
some fun sound effects to
like
pass the time.
like
Yeah, yeah.
a
Awooga, awooga. The like money symbols.
there you go. Yeah.
I'll get Sam on that thumbnail.
Yes. There you go. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If we missed anything, or if you still have questions about how to sell your action figures, whether it's Marvel Legends or anything else, let us know in the comments below. We will respond to everything. And until next time, stay strong.